I think what shattered me the most wasn't the way she looked at me that night. It was the way her words cut through everything I thought we were. I still remember it like it just happened. We were in the kitchen. I had just gotten back from working late, still in my uniform, the collar damp from the rain outside. I'd stopped on the way home to grab her favorite Thai takeout. No special occasion, just one of those small things I always did to show her I cared. Elena was scrolling on her phone, sitting at the edge of the counter with that blank expression she wore more and more lately. She didn't even glance up when I set the bag down. "You hungry?" I asked. "No." One word. No emotion. Nothing behind it. I unpacked the food anyway and tried to lighten the mood. Made a stupid joke about how I had to charm the guy at the restaurant to give me the extra peanut sauce she liked. Still nothing. Not even a smirk. Just silence. Her thumbs tapping the screen, eyes glazed over. I sat down across from her and finally said, "Are we going to talk? Or are we just going to pretend everything's fine until it falls apart?" That's when she finally looked up, but not with frustration, not with tears, just cold clarity. Like she had rehearsed the words in her head 100 times already, and now it was time to deliver the line. "Victor," she said, "your love is not enough." The room got so quiet, I could hear the hum of the fridge behind me. I laughed. Not because it was funny, it was the kind of laugh that slips out when your brain can't process what just happened. I looked at her, waiting for a follow-up, maybe a chuckle, a soft, "I'm kidding," or something, anything that would tell me I misheard. But she didn't say anything else. She went back to her phone like she just told me I left the porch light on. That's when the silence got heavy. My chest tightened, not with anger, but with something worse, realization. I had been giving everything to a woman who had quietly decided it wasn't worth anything. For 3 years, I had worked myself into exhaustion trying to build a life for us. I gave up nights out with friends, turned down promotions that would have taken me out of state, poured every spare dollar into fixing up the house we bought together. And I never complained. Elena didn't work full-time, said the office world drained her. So I supported her decision to freelance. Covered the health insurance, the bills, the rent. I made sure her car always had gas, her laptop was updated, her phone bill was paid. I showed up in every way a man is supposed to. I didn't just love her, I invested in her. And apparently, none of it mattered. She said my love wasn't enough. Not because it was lacking, but because she didn't value it. I didn't say much that night. I just got up, walked to the bedroom, and sat there, staring at the floor. My appetite vanished. My hope cracked a little. But even then, I didn't yell. I didn't accuse her of being ungrateful. I didn't demand she explain herself. Because in that moment, I understood something painful and undeniable. You can't convince someone to treasure something they've already decided is disposable. The following days were strange. We still lived under the same roof, but it was like we were strangers playing house. She didn't bring it up again. Acted like everything was fine. But the air was different. Thick. Suffocating. I started noticing things I used to overlook. The way she scrolled Instagram for hours but didn't look up when I walked into the room. The way she rolled her eyes when I reminded her of the family dinner. The sarcastic tone she used whenever I brought up plans for the future, like a vacation or buying a dog. It was like she had emotionally clocked out months ago, and I'd just been keeping the lights on without realizing no one else was home. Still, I tried. I planned a weekend getaway. She canceled last minute. I cooked her a full dinner, steak, garlic mashed potatoes, her favorite red wine. She said she wasn't hungry. I started waking up early to make her coffee again. She left it sitting on the counter. Each small rejection didn't hit like a hammer. They came like paper cuts, invisible at first, but building up until every part of me stung. And through it all, her words played on a loop in my head. "Your love is not enough." Eventually, something inside me snapped, but not with fire, with finality. I stopped trying, not out of revenge, out of respect for myself. I still got up and went to work every morning. I still paid the rent, still folded laundry and did dishes. But emotionally, I began to withdraw, slowly, quietly, deliberately. She didn't even notice. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. I stopped asking her about her day. Stopped trying to plan dinners. Stopped sharing my thoughts, my worries, my dreams. She once complained that I didn't open up. The truth was I had for years, but now I was shutting down for real. The night I decided to leave wasn't dramatic. There was no fight, no final blowout. I was sitting alone on the balcony, looking out at the city lights, sipping a cold beer. And it hit me. I hadn't smiled in weeks. I hadn't felt hurt in months. And I couldn't remember the last time she hugged me, just because she wanted to. That's when I knew love wasn't the problem. It never was. The problem was giving it to someone who saw it as ordinary. So I stood up, walked back inside, and made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to leave. And I was going to let her experience what not enough really felt like. When I stopped trying, she didn't notice. When I stopped talking, she didn't ask why. When I finally left, that's when she panicked. After Elena said those words, "Your love is not enough," something inside me didn't just crack. It began to harden. Not with anger, not with hate, just quiet, undeniable resolve. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to try to prove my worth. I'd already done that for years, in the long nights at work to pay our bills, in the birthdays I made special even when she forgot mine, in the consistent way I showed up every day without ever asking for applause. So I decided I was done, not in a dramatic, furniture-slamming kind of way. I was done in the most dangerous way possible, emotionally gone, while physically still present. I moved like a ghost in our own home. We'd pass each other in the hallway, and I'd offer a small nod. Nothing more. I stopped asking about her day. Stopped making coffee for two. Stopped folding her laundry with mine. These things might sound small, but when you've spent years giving quietly, taking those gifts away speaks volumes. She didn't react at first. Maybe she thought it was just a phase. Maybe she assumed I'd eventually fall back into the old rhythm, the one where I chased while she stayed seated. But I didn't. I stopped sharing myself. No more confessions over dinner. No more updates about work. No more gentle good nights. I gave her exactly what she claimed my love was worth. Nothing. I remember sitting on the balcony one evening, watching the sun fall behind the buildings. She opened the door, stood there for a moment, then turned and went back inside. No words. No attempt to join me. That used to be our spot. Now was mine. Quiet, peaceful mine. That was the first time I truly felt free. I began saving money quietly, stashing away what I could without altering the routines she'd notice. I sold a few things she never paid attention to, an old guitar, my watch collection, a few tech pieces I didn't use anymore. I started researching apartments across town. Something modest, just enough for me. I wasn't dreaming of luxury. I was dreaming of peace. And all the while, she kept moving through life as if nothing had changed. That's what killed me. It wasn't that she hurt me once. It was the way she never even looked to see if the damage was permanent. One night, maybe 2 weeks after my shift began, we were watching TV, or, more accurately, she was scrolling through her phone while Netflix played in the background. I sat next to her, just watching her face. She didn't notice, didn't glance at me once. I whispered, more to myself than to her. I could disappear, and you wouldn't even blink. And I meant it. So I tested it. I started staying later at work. Sometimes I'd stop by a coffee shop after hours and just sit there for an hour doing nothing, watching people walk by. No text from her. No "where are you" messages. Just silence. Eventually, I slept on the couch. She didn't ask why. The distance grew like ivy, slow but unrelenting, tangling every bit of what we used to be until I couldn't see sunlight anymore. One Friday, I packed a small bag, just essentials. A couple changes of clothes, my laptop, a few personal items. I told her I had a work trip. She nodded without looking up. I left that evening and didn't come back. I stayed in a short-term rental I'd found online. Tiny place, bare walls, cheap curtains, one creaky chair by the window. But it was mine. And for the first time in years, I slept without weight on my chest. No tension, no unspoken resentment. Just quiet. I didn't call her, didn't message. And for days, she didn't either. But something must have eventually clicked. The silence got too loud. Because the messages began. First, a casual, "Hey, when are you coming back?" No punctuation, no concern. Like she was texting a coworker running late for a meeting. I didn't respond. Then, "Is something wrong? You didn't say how long you'd be gone." Still, I kept quiet. A day later. Victor, can we talk? No, we couldn't. Because when I wanted to talk, she shut me out. When I tried to give, she mocked what I offered. Now, she wanted words? Too late. Then came the first call. I watched the screen light up. Her name, her photo, her ringtone. I let it ring. My silence wasn't out of revenge. It was a declaration. A quiet truth. I'm not yours to ignore anymore. A week passed. The tone changed. You're being immature. You're acting like a child. This is why we never worked. Blame. Projection. Panic. She didn't miss me. She missed the control. The predictability. The comfort of knowing I'd always return no matter how many times she dismissed me. But I wasn't that man anymore. I'd changed. Or maybe I'd just woken up. She stopped messaging for a while. Maybe trying to call my bluff. Maybe assuming I'd crack. I didn't. I went about my life. I bought furniture for my new place. Started seeing old friends again. I rejoined a local boxing gym I hadn't stepped into since before we met. I even found myself smiling at strangers. It felt foreign at first, but then it felt good. Natural. Weeks later, I got a longer message. I know I said something that hurt you. I didn't mean it like that. I was overwhelmed. I thought you'd always be here. I'm sorry. I want to fix things. Fix? She never noticed the cracks. Never acknowledged the weight I carried. Never once stopped to ask if I was okay when I was slowly unraveling in front of her. Now she wanted repair? No. Some things don't break. They rot. And trying to rebuild on rot is a recipe for collapse. I didn't reply. I turned off my phone that night, made myself a strong coffee, opened a book I'd been meaning to read for years, and fell asleep with the light still on. Not from exhaustion, but comfort. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't dream about her. She didn't realize what I meant to her, until there was nothing left to take from me. I never imagined that peace could be so quiet. I always thought closure came from confrontation, from getting the last word, from forcing someone to look you in the eye and admit they failed you. But in reality, my healing came in silence, in the space where her voice used to be. After weeks of no contact, after messages that turned from cold to desperate to accusatory, she finally stopped. Or so I thought. I've been living in my new place for just over 2 months when I got the knock on the door. It was a rainy Thursday night, just after I'd finished making pasta. Nothing fancy, just something simple, warm, filling. My phone was off. My playlist was on. I was in sweatpants. No expectations. Just solitude. Then came the knock. Soft. Hesitant. Repeated once more. I opened the door, and there she stood. Elena. Soaked from the rain. Mascara trailing down her cheeks. Hair stuck to her face. Shoulders slumped like the world had finally grown too heavy for her to carry. She didn't speak right away. Just looked at me like I was a stranger. Or maybe like I'd become everything she couldn't access anymore. Victor, she started, her voice thin, fragile. Please. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. She continued, stammering now. I lost my contract job, and my car broke down last week. My parents said they can't help anymore. I'm behind on rent. I didn't know what else to do. I could hear it, the fear behind her words. But more than that, I saw it. Not just fear of her situation, but fear of who I'd become in her absence. I was no longer the man who would drop everything to fix things. No longer the fool she could call for rescue. I didn't respond right away. I just looked at her, not with cruelty, but with clarity. Elena, I said calmly, what do you want from me? She stepped forward slightly, like the threshold was a line she was afraid to cross. I want to fix this, she said. I made a mistake. A huge one. I see it now. I should never have said what I said. You didn't deserve that. You were always there for me. You never gave up on us. I nodded slowly, absorbing her words like I was reading a letter addressed to a former version of me. I know, I replied. I know who I was. I remember how much I gave. Tears filled her eyes now, spilling over. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. You told me my love wasn't enough. I continued, my tone steady. But that wasn't about me. That was about your inability to receive it, to value it. You didn't want love. You wanted control. Comfort. Convenience. She tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand. You didn't just hurt me, Elena. You emptied me. You made me feel small. And when I finally stopped pouring, you noticed how dry the well was. Her breathing got shallow. Her lips trembled. Please, she whispered. Just let me come inside. Let's talk. We don't have to decide anything right now. But I had already decided. That's the part she didn't understand. While she was figuring out if I was worth fighting for, I had already fought for myself. And I won. I'm not angry, I said. And I'm not punishing you. But I'm not available to be used again. I spent years being your cushion, your provider, your emotional punching bag. I didn't walk away because I stopped loving you. I walked away because I finally started loving myself. She broke then, collapsed to her knees right there in the hallway, crying into her hands like the grief had been sitting in her chest for weeks and finally spilled over. And I just stood there, not out of coldness, but because I had nothing left to give. Everything she missed, the safety, the consistency, the love, that was me. And she didn't lose it all at once. She lost it one moment at a time. Every time she chose distance over intimacy, sarcasm over softness, withdrawal over communication. Now, with nothing, she saw everything. But I was done being the lesson. I wasn't going to rescue her from consequences she created. She eventually stood up, wiped her face, and whispered, "So this is it?" I nodded. "Yeah, this is it." She looked around my apartment, a space she'd never entered, a life she wasn't part of, and nodded slowly. "I'm sorry," she said, more to herself than to me. "You were a good man." I gave a faint smile. "I still am." She walked away after that. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't close the door dramatically. I just turned off the light and finished my dinner. Alone, in peace. And that peace, that was worth everything. In the weeks that followed, I heard she moved in with a cousin, picked up part-time work, tried therapy. Maybe she's changing. Maybe she's just surviving. I don't know. And I don't need to, because this story isn't about what she did anymore. It's about what I refuse to do. I refuse to shrink again. Refuse to re-enter a space where my value is questioned. Refuse to hand my heart back to someone who dropped it so carelessly. Now, I wake up with clarity. I spend my time with people who don't make me feel invisible. I laugh more, sleep better, dream again. Not of her, not of us, but of a life where I am whole. Not because someone completed me, but because I remembered how to stand on my own. She's out there somewhere now, probably scrolling through photos of us from years ago, wondering when it all slipped away. But the truth is, she let it go the moment she decided that love had to come with more than sacrifice, loyalty, and devotion. And now, she's left with nothing, while I'm finally full. The message came through while I was preparing a project presentation. Simple, short, cruel. I want a divorce. No explanation. No build-up. Just those 4 words. I stared at the screen like it had glitched. For a second, I thought it was a prank. Maybe she sent it to the wrong person. Maybe it was part of a joke I wasn't in on. But deep down, my gut knew better. Juliana didn't play games like that. And if she did, she was dead serious about this one. We'd been together for 6 years. Married for 4. She knew everything about me. How I took my coffee. How I hated sleeping with the window closed. How I listened to Miles Davis when I was stressed. She was my wife, my home, my person. And now, just like that, I wasn't hers anymore. I walked out of the meeting without saying a word, locked myself in my car, and read the message again. Then once more, I replied something like, "Can we talk?" No answer. 10 minutes later, I got a follow-up. "It's not working anymore. I've been thinking about this for a while. Please respect my decision." I didn't know what to feel first. Panic? Heartbreak? Humiliation? The first thing I did was call her. Straight to voicemail. I sent a message. "We need to talk. Please." Nothing. That night, I didn't go home. I couldn't. I drove for hours. No direction. Just music playing low and my mind racing in every direction. What did I do wrong? Was she seeing someone else? Was it something I missed? Had I failed her? But the truth was, and this is what hurt the most, there weren't any fights. No drama. No Cold War in the house. At least nothing obvious. Sure, we'd had our moments. Who doesn't? But I always thought we were solid. That even when life got heavy, we were anchored to each other. Apparently, I was the only one who felt that way. When I finally went back to the apartment the next morning, her things were already gone. Half the closet was empty. A few drawers left open, like she'd packed in a rush. Her favorite coffee mug was missing from the kitchen sink. The framed photo of our honeymoon in Buenos Aires, gone from the hallway wall. I stood there, in the middle of the living room, not knowing whether to scream or cry. Neither happened. I just froze. Like if I stayed still long enough, maybe I'd wake up and realize this was all some dream. But reality doesn't offer those kind of exits. I sat on the edge of our bed, my bed, now, and replayed the last few weeks in my head. She'd been quieter, yes. A little distracted, more on her phone than usual. She worked late a few nights, but nothing that screamed exit plan. Was she pretending the whole time? Or was I just too blind to see it coming? I thought about the dinners I cooked for her after work, how I rubbed her shoulders when she was stressed, the anniversary trip I was secretly planning for the fall, the way I used to kiss her forehead before leaving for the office, even when she was still half asleep. And for what? So she could type 4 words into a phone and vanish? That week was the longest of my life. I didn't tell anyone at first. I was embarrassed, not just because I got left, but because I had no clue why. What do you even say to people? Yeah, she left me. I didn't see it coming. You sound like a fool, like someone who didn't know what was happening in his own house. But eventually, I told my brother, Isaac. He just listened, didn't offer fake comfort or cliches. Just said, I'm here, man. And sometimes that's enough. I started sleeping on the couch, not because the bed wasn't comfortable, but because it felt haunted. Every time I lay down, I could still smell her perfume on the pillow, still feel the dent her body left on the mattress. So I stayed in the living room, staring at the ceiling night after night, trying to understand how love could turn so cold without a warning shot. And yet, in the middle of all that pain, I made a decision. I wouldn't chase someone who didn't want to be caught. I wouldn't beg for explanations from someone who delivered destruction without a second of hesitation. If she wanted freedom, I'd give her silence. It wasn't easy. Every part of me wanted answers. Closure. Even a fight. Something. But I knew deep down, if she could walk away without blinking, there was nothing left for me to hold on to. So I respected her choice. I told her I'd sign whatever she needed me to sign. No games. No revenge. No drama. And then I shut the door. Emotionally, mentally, physically, I shut the door. I unfollowed her on everything. Deleted the thread of messages between us. Packed away the memories that still had teeth. I didn't throw them out. Not out of nostalgia, but because even pain deserves its box. Its burial. In the weeks that followed, I slowly found pieces of myself again. I started going back to the gym. Picked up photography again, something I dropped when life got too busy. Took weekend drives to nowhere just to feel movement. I wasn't healed, not even close. But I was breathing, and in some strange way, that was enough. What Juliana never expected was that the man she left wouldn't stay frozen. She thought I'd be waiting, broken, available, still orbiting her shadow like some satellite she could summon back whenever she needed. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had been for too long. The man who canceled his dreams to support hers. The guy who covered the bills while she figured out her next step. The husband who never questioned why affection came in drops, not waves. I had loved her fully, but now all I had left was myself. And for the first time in a long time, I was learning how to make that enough. When she said she wanted a divorce, I didn't argue. I just listened. And when she was done talking, I stepped back and disappeared. The day Juliana asked for the divorce, something inside me broke, but not in the way you'd expect. It wasn't loud. There were no shouts. No slammed doors or shattered plates. Just a quiet internal shift, like a door closing in a dark hallway you didn't even know was open. 4 weeks after that message, I walked around like a man who'd misplaced his identity. The home we shared now echoed. Every room had pieces of her missing. A framed picture gone, her side of the closet wiped clean, favorite mugs no longer in the kitchen cabinet. She didn't leave mess. She left absence. And honestly, that was worse. It's funny how someone can pull themselves out of your life without a fight. No therapy sessions. No heart-to-hearts. Just a couple of texts, some vague explanations, and suddenly you're living alone in a space you once filled together. I didn't chase her. It wasn't pride. It was exhaustion, because chasing implies you were being led somewhere. And I wasn't. I was stranded. So I did the only thing that felt right. I vanished. Quietly. Completely. No fanfare. No warning. I packed what was mine, canceled the lease early, and left the apartment where I once imagined raising children with her. I didn't leave a note. What was there left to say? The apartment I moved into was smaller. Simpler. I didn't care about furniture or wall art. I just needed somewhere that didn't smell like her perfume every time I opened a drawer. I got rid of anything that carried her shadow. Photos. Old letters. Just because gifts I gave her that she never seemed to truly appreciate. I wasn't doing it out of spite. I just knew I couldn't move forward with pieces of the past chained to my ankles. The first few nights in that place were brutal. Silence is deafening when you're used to someone's voice filling the gaps. I slept with music on just to feel like someone was in the room. But slowly, the quiet started feeling like peace. I stopped looking at my phone every 5 minutes. I stopped replaying our last few conversations, trying to spot what I missed. And for the first time in a long time, I started thinking about what I wanted, not what she needed, not how to fix things. Just me, Marcus, the man behind the husband. I picked up journaling again. I hadn't done it since college. There was something raw and grounding about pouring thoughts on a paper without needing to filter them for anyone else. I wasn't writing poetry or anything, just thoughts, confessions, frustrations. Like, how did I end up giving everything and still come out empty? Or, is it wrong to feel freer now that she's gone? I didn't share these thoughts. They weren't meant for anyone. They were anchors, keeping me grounded on nights when the loneliness threatened to pull me back toward her memory. My routine shifted too. Instead of coming home to prepare her favorite meals, which she often barely acknowledged, I started cooking for myself. Real food, with flavors I enjoyed. I stopped skipping gym sessions. I reconnected with people I'd pushed aside because Juliana didn't vibe with them. Suddenly, I was surrounded by friends I didn't even realize I missed. I didn't talk about her. They didn't ask. It was unspoken, a mutual respect for my silence. But the best part? I didn't need to explain anymore. I wasn't a man abandoned. I was a man in recovery. And recovery is a private, slow, sacred thing. Some days were worse than others. I'd hear a song that reminded me of her laugh, or I'd walk past a place where we once shared a Sunday brunch. And for a moment, it would sting. But I didn't let myself spiral, because I knew where that spiral led, back to a version of me who was always reaching and never held. And that man was gone. Vanishing from her world meant more than just physical distance. I deleted every old thread of messages, removed her number from my phone, muted mutual friends who couldn't stop posting couple pictures. I wasn't angry, just uninterested. In her absence, I began to understand that not all love is healthy, and not all silence is empty. Sometimes silence is your spirit finally exhaling. About 6 weeks after I left, I saw her name pop up in my email inbox. It wasn't a long message. Just, I hope you're okay. I've been thinking about you. No apology. No explanation. Just a breadcrumb. I stared at that line for a while. The old version of me would have taken a bait. Would have sent something back like, I miss you too, or can we talk? But I didn't need to. She made her choice, and I was finally making mine to respect it. I archived the message. Didn't delete it. Just moved it out of sight. Because even though I was healing, I knew better than to invite the very thing that once broke me back into my life. I think she expected me to stay in orbit, to hang around like a satellite waiting for her gravity to pull me back. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had built a new world, one where my joy wasn't dependent on her mood, one where love didn't feel like negotiation. So I kept going. I found a therapist, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to make sure I didn't carry my hurt into someone else's heart down the line. I wanted to learn how to set boundaries, not walls. How to love again, but from a place of strength, not desperation. And slowly, day by day, I felt lighter. Not because I forgot her, but because I remembered me. People think disappearing is about abandonment, but sometimes it's about preservation. It's choosing to disappear from a world that no longer sees your value, so you can reappear in one that does. The thing about walking away with dignity is that the person who took you for granted always comes crawling back. The silence drives them mad. It had been exactly 3 months since Juliana said she wanted a divorce. She didn't stutter when she wrote those words, didn't hesitate when I asked if she was sure. There was no sadness in her tone, just cold, mechanical detachment, like she was confirming a canceled subscription. I gave her what she asked for. No drama, no resistance. I simply stepped aside. I respected her decision, and then I disappeared, not as punishment, but as preservation. That was the last time I heard her voice, until I got a call from an unknown number at 10:47 p.m. I let it ring. The first time, I ignored it. The second time, I turned off the ringer. But the third, something told me to check the voicemail. It was her. The voice that once filled our home with warmth, now shaking like a child lost in a crowd. Marcus, I know I don't deserve this call, but I need to hear your voice. Please. I'm so sorry. I stare at the screen. It felt surreal. 3 months ago, she walked out on me like I was a failed project. No warning, no closure, just a few sentences typed during my lunch break. Now she was sobbing into my voicemail, as if her world had crumbled without the man she once discarded like old furniture. I didn't respond. I didn't feel anger, not even pride, just nothing. And that nothing felt peaceful. The next day, she messaged me. A wall of text. No greeting. Just an emotional purge that reeked of desperation. I thought I needed freedom. I thought space would help. But Marcus, I was wrong. I'm falling apart. I can't sleep. I can't focus. Everything reminds me of you. Of us. Please don't shut me out. You are my best friend. I read every word. Slowly. Absorbing the irony in each sentence. Funny how the same person who treated my love like a burden was now begging to feel it again. But I said nothing, because this time my silence was the answer. She wasn't reaching out because she loved me. She was reaching out because she had finally felt the absence of the man who held her together while she quietly planned her escape. Regret is loud when it's too late. She called again that night. This time I picked up not to talk but to listen. I stayed silent while she wept. "Why won't you say anything?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Don't you miss me? Don't you want to at least try again?" I exhaled slowly. Then calmly, I said, "You made your choice. You don't get to rewrite the ending because you don't like how it feels now." She gasped, as if those words stabbed deeper than any insult ever could. That was the only thing I said. I ended the call. After that, she didn't stop trying. Every 2 or 3 days, she'd send a message. One day it was an apology. The next it was anger, blame, accusations. "You never really loved me if you can be this cold. You were emotionally unavailable. Maybe if you'd fought harder, we wouldn't be here." I didn't answer any of them. I didn't need to. When someone truly believes you'll never leave, they treat you like an option. But the moment they realize you won't stay and wait forever, they panic. And that panic sounded a lot like guilt dressed in manipulation. She wasn't crying because she lost me. She was crying because she lost control. When I was with her, I covered the bills. I cooked dinner. I booked our vacations. I filled her emotional voids when she didn't have the tools to do it herself. And I did it all willingly, thinking that's what love looked like. Turns out, I was just a cushion. She got a fall without consequences, until the day I removed the safety net. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that she'd been struggling financially. Lost her temp job, missed rent once, asked her parents for help, but they'd grown tired of enabling her impulsive choices. She was burning bridges one by one. Eventually, she hit the last one on me, and I was gone. But here's the thing, I wasn't cruel. I never told people what she did. I never aired out her mess on social media. I never slandered her name to friends. I just exited, cleanly, quietly, fully. That's what drove her crazy. Not my anger, my absence. People can fight anger. They can argue with rage. But silence? Silence is terrifying. It's proof that you've moved on. Not out of spite, not to win, but because peace became more valuable than proving a point. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just wasn't willing to hurt myself anymore for someone who couldn't love me without conditions. 3 weeks after her first call, she showed up at my building. I knew it was coming. She'd hinted at it in a message. If you don't respond, I'll come find you. I need to talk face to face. I saw her through the lobby glass. Same coat she always wore in the fall. Hands shaking, pacing, phone clutched like it held answers. I didn't go down. I let her wait. After 20 minutes, she texted me again. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come. I just don't know what to do anymore. That was the last message she ever sent. Maybe she finally understood. Maybe she finally saw that I wasn't playing hard to get. I was gone, and she had no map to bring me back. That day, I made peace with everything. With the confusion, the pain, the unanswered questions. I stopped needing closure from someone who never cared enough to offer it when it mattered. Juliana became a chapter, one I read too many times hoping for a different ending. Now, I've closed the book, and I'm writing a new one, quietly, patiently, and with someone who doesn't flinch at the word forever. I don't wish her pain. I wish her growth. But I won't be part of it, because the man she left isn't waiting anymore. He's living.